All right, can you see it now? Are you in you're in the voice channel, right? Can anyone else see it? Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to overly talk about that one because I know it's not really in everybody's wheelhouse. Oh yeah. Yeah. Let me Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I'm trying to, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, no, it does. I'm just trying to think of like a good. So let's look at Apple so we can see what happened there. So you were looking at this deal. I see it right here. God darn it. Hold on one second. I'm gonna switch browsers because I just got like a, whoops, I want to do that. A new SSD drive because my computer keeps running out of not memory, but whatever it is that allows you to have multiple windows. And that dang browser, for some reason, takes up a lot of resources. I like it because you can put up two trading view charts and tile them next to each other, like your setup. So that's the only reason I have it up. All right, let's do this again. Mm-hmm. Alrighty, here we go. Hopefully it won't keep freezing. Screen. Okay. Yeah, so how you could have avoided that strat. Let's look at it. Oops, why did that go to Twitter? I don't want to do that. Okay, so I'm so annoyed right now. I keep getting notifications from Twitter. It's like, stop. Turn these dang things off. All right, turn them on. Okay, so a couple things. One, it was above your point of control, so that would have stopped me completely from taking the double top. Do you see that? Yeah, so that's critical. It's really, to me, it's kind of like your guide for the day. And I always had that question too with how things were. Yes, if price is above, it's typically along, price is below. Why is this dang thing? Why does it keep freezing? That's so annoying. I don't understand. Anyway, so the setups I like today are Baba. It's a 2-2 with a hammer candle on the daily. So your strat setup would be a 2-2 reversal to the upside. It's pre-market at 257, so well above where it closed yesterday. Usually, does my screen share keep running out or can you see it? Okay, all right. It must just be my little thumbnail. Okay, I'm not going to worry about it. So that setup I really like. If you look at Baba on the 3 minute 3 minute chart, you see the pre-market histogram right here, and it is at the bottom of that range. So typically, and it's above the new point of control right here. So typically what you're going to see is, I don't know exactly what'll happen at the open, but typically if it stays above that at the open, it'll float up to at least the high of that range. And I mean, it's really pretty reliable, but I really like the daily chart on this. We just got to see because it's a decent sized gap. Is it gonna come back down and test? Is it gonna jump out of the gate right away? I like that setup. Hmm. Look at that. It's at the bottom. So what time frame are you drawing your fraud information on? The daily. See, and a lot of times I will break it down, or if we look at the daily chart here, typically what you want to do is find a three candle to a three candle on both sides. So I would draw it from this candle right here that's a three. And if I do that, then it definitely looks like it's at the bottom. I can see it just with my eye. You know what I mean? Sure, yeah, no, and it's not an exact science. I mean, it doesn't mean just because that's how I do it, it's always going to be right. I've just found that works pretty well. So I really like that setup. Let's look at Netflix. And you guys, you can unmute mute yourself while we're doing this so we can all talk or not. It doesn't matter. But uh, at market open, probably a good idea to mute because I've never tried to trade and talk to people at the same time. So it could be a disaster for me. I guess we'll see. So let me get this back to the daily. So Netflix, the reason I like it, I see this a lot where you have a big up candle. The next day is this is a spinning top doji, so it's really just an equilibrium. I didn't go anywhere or do anything type of candle. It Netflix typically doesn't gap up a ton. I mean, this gap is a little bit from yesterday's close. but it has room even back to just that 524 area. It's also got full time frame continuity here, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly. So that's a real nice setup. The other thing I like about it is it's at the bottom of this histogram chart and right on that point of control. So that's, to me, looks like a really nice setup. SPY was inside day yesterday. So far in pre-market, it's above that inside candle where we closed. I'm just going to mark that. Typically with inside candles, you don't want to trade them unless it's Tesla or Amazon that have huge range. So even if it was inside the day before, moving inside that range can still give you enough movement. So it's above yesterday's close. It's coming down to the bottom of that histogram range. And again, I like that because for a long, typically, you're going to see it float back up to the top of that range. Ideally, I'd like to see it above that point of control, this black line right here. So, in the next 25 minutes or so, that could easily happen. XLE, I like. And the setup on the daily is a 3, looking for a potential 322 reversal. We've got magnitude at least up to 4170. And if I look at this chart right here, I'd like to see, again, that we are toward the bottom of the range and above the point of control. We were earlier, it's changed, but just things to keep an eye on. Zoom, like this setup, we had a rev strat, basically a 122, and that down hammer. So you have the up hammer and a down hammer. That's again often like an equilibrium. So a lot of times you'll see that it'll continue in whatever direction it's trending. Let's look at the monthly because it's green daily, weekly. Let's look at the monthly. How far are we from going green? Oh, we're quite a ways away. Let's see, what's the average to range of Zoom? Zoom, wow, the average to range of Zoom is 22 points. So what we could, if we look at the weekly, oops, 1 week. What could happen is that we could have a compound 3 back to the upside. So we've got a 2 that started out below and turned back around. So assuming it continues going up, we could easily take out at least this candle up to 418. And then your magnitude would be 439 and so on. So that's a definite possibility. Oh, Lulu. I like that chart too on the daily. So on the daily, this would be a 222 reversal of the upside, or on the weekly, sorry, is what I'm looking at. No, I've got to look at the daily. I'm getting myself confused. So we already had the 2-2 reversal, with yesterday's doji, but once again, those doji candles are really like an equilibrium. Nothing really happened, so I didn't entirely expect it to continue up here. It's gapping up a little bit pre-market. We look at our histogram. It's toward the bottom of the range, at least with this last candle here. I'd like to see it above that point of control. It's not right now, so we'll have to see what that looks like as we get closer to the open. We look at a 15-minute chart, it's almost there. It's like just below. Okay, And then TDOC. Just make this bigger so everyone can see. So I got some lines marked up. I tend to like to mark up the last couple days closing prices. And either the high or the low, depending on what direction it looks like we're going to go in. Okay. So earlier it was above that point in control. Now it's changed direction here. So this setup could actually just continue to the downside. That's the way it's looking now. It was different earlier. You can see it was up here just above previous close. So we'll have to watch as it's closer. That it's looking pretty bearish right now. TDOC, XLE, Zoom, SPY. So yeah, those are the setups I like for the day. And then someone was asking Twitter. Let's look at Twitter. It'd help if I could type the right symbol in. I haven't looked at Twitter in ages. So Twitter looks like it's a bearish setup, at least at the open, right now. Because it's near the top of that histogram range, it's below the point of control. Up now, the point of control just switched, so that could change it to more of a bullish setup. And really, what I focus on is what does it look like as the market's opening, and where is that point of control? If I have something like this that's more mid-range, I tend to be a little bit hesitant and wait a little bit longer for it to set up properly. This chart, I mean, we've got full time frame continuity to the upside, so that's definitely a positive. We have some magnitude here. So it's at 52.74 up to, so about 75 cents, which for Twitter is a lot. Let's see here. Look at it over here. Yeah, the average true range is about 2 points. So if it's going to run, my guess is it's going to run up to the top of the high from 2 days ago and maybe crap out at that point. Look on. Yeah, but right now it's looking kind of bearish. So I'd wait a little bit longer for that to set up. And then FANG. FANG kind of goes hand in hand with XLE. I like the daily setup on this a lot. You've got a 3-2 and you'd be looking for that 2 to the upside, and you definitely have some magnitude here. Even if it only went to the top of this candle, that's not bad. But if we went and reached the top here, that's real nice, because FANG obviously doesn't have a ton of range, although it's not bad, about 3 points. So that could be a real nice setup for today. The only thing is I'd like to see it above that point of control. It is at the bottom of this histogram range. I definitely like that. What would you be looking for to break the signal along? Well, I'd like to see it ideally above yesterday's highs. Let me see. Let's look at the hourly chart real quick on this too. Because sometimes even if it's not, it'll race up so quick and then you feel like you missed the trade. Ideally, what would get me into the trade is that pre-market we're near the bottom of this range with this point of control line below the actual price. And we've got room up to here, 48.90 on the current histogram. So I like that. Make this screen a little bit bigger. Any other stocks that you guys are looking at? Yeah, I think right. Let's just yeah, I put a new thing on my charts too. We'll see how this goes. See this bearish OB, bullish OB. This is supposed to track like institutional block orders during the day. Um, so I've never used it on my chart, so I'm gonna kind of pay attention to that and see if it's provides some decent actionable signals. But if you look back at the history of it, it seems pretty accurate. So that combined with histogram could really be a good thing. Let's look at Apple again. Apple's selling off. I would expect it to, because it had such a big day yesterday. Which one? The bear. Yeah, so if you go to the function key and type in order, let me see here. Pull it up. The little yeah, the thing where you pull up your indicators. Where did mine go? There it is. It's behind my drawing tools. So you go here, type in order, and it's this first order block finder. Oops, I didn't mean to put that on my. So let me just, I turned off a lot of the junk that's on it. So I just have the bullish OB. And if you have a darker color, like my charts are light. If yours are dark, it has a thing to change this color scheme from dark to bright, which is kind of nice. And then I just have bullish OB average, bearish OB, and bearish OB average. Right now I have those average things turned off with, so in other words, I don't have the lines checked down here. If I check them, it puts these other lines on my chart. And to me, it gets to be sometimes too much stuff going on. Take that off. I also found this that kind of shows where buyers and sellers are. I'm not a huge fan though of having that on during trading because once again, you know, if you in some of these charts, it's just too chaotic. So I'm going to turn that off. Let's see here. Back to this. I'm going to run through these tickers again. Somebody was looking at Tilray, TLY. I haven't looked at that in ages. Wow. Whoa. That is a huge gap. My Lord. That's, I mean, that could have pooped itself out just on the gap alone. So it's mid-range here on the point of control and the histogram to monitor how that shows up when the market opens. That's what I kind of wait on because right now I'm not overly jazzed about the setup. To me, I would think it would sell back down. Anything's possible though. And that's why you can form a bias where you think something's going to go, but you got to let price action tell you. Sometimes that's the hardest part. Let's look back at Baba. Still like Baba, it's not acting too crazy. Did a test wick down to here and got sucked up. So I like that. I really like the daily on that, like I said. I was looking at CAT too, because it's inside day. And CAT has a range of 4 points. So it could easily push back up to these all-time highs or above. CAT could be a trade. Did I put an alert on this? Um, Working inside candle. And just one thing about strat signals, guys, if you see one on the chart, the only issue is, let's say you see a 30-minute or an hour signal that looks perfect, you still, in my opinion, have to look at a lower time frame. So I often look at a 1 minute. Some people don't like a 1 minute, it's too fast. So you could watch a 5 minute, but you ideally want to wait for a small triangle day out before you get in, especially if you're trading options. If you're trading stock, it might not be as important, but if you are trading options, even a little micro try could sometimes really get you red pretty quick. So just things to think about, because a lot of times Rob will make it sound like you can just jump right in on that signal, and oftentimes I've found it's not really the case. So Baba and Lulu, I really like. Back in Netflix. Netflix is so weird at the open. It always seems like it always like jacks around for a while before it gets going. But I do like that. So Baba and Netflix so far, two of my faves. SPY is coming down a little bit here. So if we get down toward the bottom of this range and we're above point of control, that could be a nice setup. Right now it's clearly below. So I personally would wait until point of control, it's above point of control to go long. And we have to see if it actually stays above yesterday's close too. If it starts breaking down below that, that could be pretty bearish. It's still like TDOC here, the lower end of that range. But again, it's come down so much. It is above point of control, so I do like that. It could even be as simple as it bounces back up to the close from 2 days ago and then sells off. XLE again. So XLE, bottom of the histogram. I like the daily possible for a strat setup, but I'd want to see it clearly above that point of control. These little dots, by the way, are developing point of control. So sometimes if point of control is higher than the developing point of control, but at the open it's near the bottom of the range and above the developing point of control, those can still be really good trades. They're just, I feel like your probability is higher when it's above the point of control, which kind of averages all the trades that have been pre-market, whereas this one's going to look at what's happened in the last 3 minutes, basically. Let's look at Zoom again. Zoom is below point of control. Again, that could change pretty quickly at the open. But on a lot of these things, I mean, you don't have to jump in right away at the open. You can wait for them to set up. You don't want to jump in and then on the wrong setup and then get killed. So patience is kind of a big deal. I'm just going to look at Amazon again to see what that's doing. Not a huge fan of how that looks right now. This to me looks, so a short setup at the open tends to be where you're at the top of that histogram range and you're below point of control, just so people know what I'm looking at. Yeah, Baba I really like. It's above the past 2 closes, it's above point of control, it's near the bottom of that range. The crappy thing is sometimes these guys go before market opens, and that's always frustrating. You guys know about Mind the Flip? So you know how Rob always talks about the flip? If you go to mindtheflip.com, you can have a little voice that'll tell you when the flips are occurring because I lose track of that. Yeah, so just type in mindtheflip.com. One of the guys in Rob's chat made it for us. So this will tell you just when the flip in the market's occurring. So, right now it's telling me market opens in 5 minutes. Then it'll tell you when the market's opening. Then it'll tell you the 15-minute flips, the 30 and the 60, which is nice just because you then have some awareness. I've also created on the side here, you guys can't see it, but this may be helpful. We'll have to see how this works. But I created a list of or a scan of all the indexes, including the spiders for like energy and financials, industrials, banks, all the different utilities, all those energy. And so that'll help show me what's going on in the market. It's like Rob says, if the majority of things are headed down, you can expect for the most part that that's what we're going to be looking at for the day. So I'm just going to be keeping an eye on that there. Let's look at the boy, time goes quick in the morning. Oh, I know. It goes by fast. Get my order entry thing up here. Oh, I need to turn off my P&L on the chart too. If you guys have P&L up on your charts, take it off because for me, it'll just cause me to do stupid things. Like I stop looking at the price action, I start freaking out looking at my bottom line, and it can really mess with you. It's so annoying, right? All right, I'm gonna run to the bathroom before. Where's those diapers, right? All right, be back. See what Qs are doing. QQ. Qs are looking pretty bullish. Yeah, Gab.
How long do we have before I go to the doctor?
They're gonna call us at 10. I gotta hang up though, honey.
Okay.
Bye. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, so Baba jumped up to the top of that histogram and now it's going below point of control. Energy is now selling off too. Netflix. Let's see. Oh, Netflix. I don't like the Qs are going down though. See if that gets sucked up. Here goes Netflix. I didn't turn off my. There we go. So that's one that is like a perfect setup, and I just missed it by talking to my kid. But you see, it's on a close from yesterday at the bottom of the histogram, above the developing point of control, and at the bottom of this range. That's like it doesn't really get much better than that. So when I'm going through my charts at the open, this is pretty much what I'm looking for. And my initial target typically is the top of that range. So if I'm looking, the only issue you potentially have here is, will it be strong enough to break through the close from a few days ago, which is this red line right here. So for me, so Lulu also at the open, same kind of setup as Netflix. Let's see, TDOC is selling off, but now it's looking like it might want to head back up here. See, I like that above the point of control, bottom of the histogram. This thing can move too. There'll be another opportunity with these. For me, it's since I've never traded and talked people through it, it's a matter of, can I multitask efficiently? Yep, I see that. That's what you're looking for, guys. So here's Zooms, just so we can all look at it together. Yeah, I mean, the good thing about these, and this is why I have the 15-second chart up at the open for things that are really moving, because you can get a real good entry, like right here, you could enter or not. So what it's doing, this line, I marked the top of this candle pre-market because it really stuck out to me. And you see it's bouncing potentially off that level. But I'm just going to be patient. I mean, the markets have been a little wonky. So I'd rather be patient and not, injure myself in some kind of way. Let's see what's going on with the internals. So we got about half and half right now. SPY's down, Q's down just slightly. Let's look at what SPY real quick. Is it taking off? So yeah, it definitely looked bearish to me. I mean, these histograms and point of control are really, really helpful. They truly are. Let's see what happens with SPY, because it's forming that hammer. Is it gonna go above or continue to sell off? A bit of a battle going on right here. I mean, it looks like it wants to go up, but no guarantee, right? It could come down. Let's see here. test this. Which is what it looks like it's probably gonna do here. Oh, this is another thing. I don't know that I saw this on my chart, but when you see this pre-market, I didn't even see that before. That's also a really good indication. When you have a bullish block order pre-market like that, it's generally going to drive that price up. So let's see. Okay, here's a good entry on BABA right off the 15-minute, possibly. But if I look at the 3, let's see here. So you see that on, where did my little dot go? Just disappeared. See that developing point of control right there? That little dot on the inside candle? That's a good sign that it's going to continue higher. Down here you can see it bounced off. I know Rob doesn't like the moving averages, but on a fast time frame, it's helpful to know where you are in space because there's so many candles you can get lost in the fray at times. Let's see what else is going on. So Netflix came all the way back down. Lulu's looking strong. Lulu and Zoom, my lord. So this is typically a continuation pattern too. If it stayed like that, we'll see. May start going down. Ideally, when you see a candle move or a price move up significantly, you want to see that point of control following the price up. Because the point of control will often act kind of like a support level. Yeah. So we'll see what this candle does here. If I'm looking on the 15-second, the 9's about to cross over the 20. So that's not a great sign. But you see here how when it ramps up to the top of that range, a lot of times it will just start selling off. And these are the other thing to look at with this chart. These are the highs from yesterday. So when you have a situation like this where it tries to make that push for yesterday's highs and fails, that's also a good sign. So, you know, when you're getting into trades, you want to put a few pieces of the, oh, target's breaking to the upside here over that inside candle. And you see on the 15-second, that was beautiful, right above the point of control. Let's look at Zoom again. Yeah, Zoom is just beautiful. But once again, it kind of ramped up to the top of that range. Now, as I'm looking at all the indices, just about everything's starting to go red here. So we've got 5 that are positive and like 10 that are going negative. So overall, right now, the market's turning bearish. So something like this, you see on the 15-second where it, and I only use the point of control on a 15-second chart at the open because as you get into the day, price action typically isn't moving as quickly and there's too much noise here. So I'll change it to like a 1 or something like that. But this is a great setup here where it came up to the top of the range, it got smacked down, So you could take the trade there, or if you're hesitant to, because it's still above that point of control, you could also take it right here for the ride down. That's actually a great setup because you've got the 20 above the 9, and that's a pretty bearish sign. Yeah, that's the close from yesterday. TradingView will mark it automatically, but it only does it at the open, and I like to have it as a point of reference in the pre-market. All right, so here we go. Let's see if the internals are getting a little bit more green. See, and that's a beautiful trade on Amazon right there, potentially above. You know, that'd be a 1-2. Yeah, it didn't want to go. Let's see. We're accused in there. See if the volume starts getting bought up on Qs. I mean, looking at the daily, it's double top like, but then you've got, other than today, you've got full time frame continuity to the upside. But when trends change direction, it's got to start somewhere, right? SPY and Qs are looking pretty good here. Unless it breaks with this inside candle on the downside. Qs look more ready than SPY. Or not. No, it just wants to continue down. So a lot of times too, when I'm looking at trend changes at the open, I'm looking at the 15-second chart. And if I see a higher low, oftentimes that's a good signal. Ideally though, when I see that higher low, I want price to be above these moving averages. It doesn't always happen that way, but that's kind of the ideal. So a lot of times I'll wait for the 9 to go back above the 20 on the 15-second chart and price to be above the 9. And then I'll get in, because like right now you can see it looked like it tried to go. It's going to try again here. And then we got this nice candle forming right here. So SPY's doing something similar right now. And XLE is trying to go too. Let's see here. Just want to see. Hopefully you guys are seeing how that faster time frame at the open can help. Okay, it's SPY's going. I think Qs are going to go here too. Internals are still fairly bearish. So I'll have to see if that starts shaping up. But now we've got IWM. Diamonds and Qs are negative. IWM and SPY are starting to go here. It looks like. Okay, so here on the 15-second. Now price is above, it looks like the 9's just about to cross over that 20. Sometimes it'll take off too fast. Something else to look at here, see how on the 15-second chart it based. Price tried to go lower and it really didn't go lower than this level. That's a real good sign that price may be reversing here too. So here we go, 9's over the, or over the 20. Then if you want to get in on something like that, I wait for a triangle layout. You don't want to jump in here and chase it. So here we're getting a little one. That could have been a great entry. It can be a little tricky. Generally what I'll do, especially with options, is if I start to take a trade on one of the candles, it's just going to be a small position so that if it comes back a little more but still looks strong, I can add and bring my average price down and be in the money fairly quickly. Let's see what it does. So there you go. To where she's gonna go. The one thing is when you're in a trade, then as much as possible, you don't want to get too caught up in looking at the 15-second anymore, because again, there'll be a lot of noise. And so you could end up stopping out of a trade that is going to work if you're just hyper focused. What I'll often do too, if I'm concerned that it's going to reverse, I'll draw a trend line. And you can see was Leach trying to bounce there. Sometimes you have to adjust it too, so just kind of see what happens. I mean, realistically, you could have drawn it this way too. I feel like market makers lately, you get into a position and they're trying like almost immediately to triangle you up. So here we'll see, this is, if it stops going down here and makes a slightly higher low, that's a good sign. We'll see if it actually does that or not. So I like that if it can push back above. And you see here on the 3-minute, you got the hammer shooter. So that's usually pretty bullish. And here she looks like she's going to go. So that's another thing you can do. On the 15-second, when you see that the initial trend is down and it starts to go up, again, you don't want to jump in right here. You really don't. And on this 3-minute chart, you wouldn't have wanted to jump in on this reversal. Rob would say to get in right here. I mean, you could, but then right away it's going to go back against you. And for a lot of people, it'll freak them out. So looking at the smaller time frame, you got the base here. You see it going up. You wait for that pullback and for it to make a higher low, which is what happened here. Whoops. And your entry would be really on this, when this candle starts to go green. The other thing is you could take it here on this wick because you've had a nice little pullback. but there's always the chance that it'll turn around on you. I like possibly taking it off this inside candle. I mean, Rob always says don't trade inside candles, but this is a 15-second chart, so that rule really doesn't apply. And you can see that this candle is green, a green inside candle. So it's an up candle. SPY's having a harder time. Now we're back to about 50-50 on the indexes. I mean, looking at all these different charts, nothing looks overly fantastic right now, but that could change here. All right, Qs are gonna make that push. So Qs just went positive over yesterday's close right here. I mean, I shouldn't say positive because it's got to get above this line, but above yesterday's close, that's a good sign. Everything else is just kind of sitting there. SPY's trying to go now. All right, let's see how that. So at this point, what I often do is I'll turn off the extended hours because your trades out of the gate are pretty much done with. So now I can see that histogram and where we're going to go pretty clearly. And Qs should go up to at least this price point. Should. And now it's above that main point of control too, so that's a good sign. Let's look at BABA. All right, we've got an inside candle. If it stays inside, a break in either direction could take us higher. Your magnitude here isn't great, but when a stock's really strong, you'll see that that histogram starts to come up. Yeah, it's right above it, right? Because this is a green one. So its price is right here and the point of control is right here. But that's not a candle I would take because BABA could just sit here and chop around. And that's where, once again, looking at the smaller time frame, it's under the most recent point of control there. So I would like to see that we're getting a strong trend on the smaller time frame before I jump in. Let's see. Oh, here we go, possibly. If it breaks above, question is it going to be strong enough? That's where, once again, looking here so you can see what's going on with that candle. Just made a big push. And another thing to note, you've kind of got that same basing formation that we saw on, was it Amazon? Or Q's? Let's see. Yeah, whenever you see that price is trying to go lower several times and doesn't, and these are all things about price action that you start to learn. You know, here it based out, it kept trying to go lower, but didn't push below this level. Still about 50-50, so kind of mixed in the internals. Okay, XLE looks like it might go here. So it's at the bottom of the range now, above point of control, with room to move up. And you see here on the 15-second, it tried to go lower, it didn't. It tried to go lower, it didn't. Tried to. So these are really. Let's draw a little line here so you can see this. These are, even though it doesn't look it, each attempt is slightly higher, slightly higher, slightly higher. So when you see something basing like that, but each drop has a slightly higher low, that's generally a good sign. So I'm XLE right now, I'd like to see it above yesterday's high before I'd get in. The ways up. With options, you get killed in that choppy action. That's why if you just do a small position to start, you can add. And that way, if it ultimately does decide to go against you, you don't have big losses. Okay, if this shoots up, that's going to be a good sign here. It also, first thing is it also needs to get over this candle wick. I don't know why it does that. You tell it where you want it to put the price and it goes somewhere else. It's annoying. I'm not thrilled that it's not above yesterday's close either, but it could easily push through that if it wants to. All right, and here's another thing to note. You see how there's kind of a big void right here? You got the histogram pushing out and then you got a big void. That's a good sign because when there's a void, there's really typically very little resistance and you'll find that price can float right through that. Let's see, Zoom looks like it might be setting up here. Point of control still quite a bit above though. Daily. Not a huge fan of this, the fact that it couldn't even make that push to yesterday's highs, but we're so early in the game that could change. Lulu. Let's look at Lulu real quick. Okay, I like what the 15-second is looking like. We're above that point of control here. The bottom of the range. So you see how this bearish OB, it was a bearish block order that came through and then sold back off. And it was also near the top of that range. Oh, this little price thing? Yeah, this is the first time I've actually had it in my chart when I'm trading live. So to see how that works throughout the day. Yeah, if it's really delayed like that, then it doesn't overly serve a purpose. Have to see. Right, is Lulu going to make a higher low here? That's the other thing about watching the 15-second chart. You'll see a candle like this, and that can cause you to freak out when it's really not that big of a candle, oftentimes. Okay, here we go with point of control now being below price. An inside candle on the 3 minutes, so I wouldn't, not, now it dipped below. Wouldn't touch it till we see what happens here. All right, let's see. See what she does here. If she busts below yesterday's lows, you could have some magnitude to here, then to here, potentially here. That's an awfully long way for it to go down in one day, though. And this is where you could get over the next few days, like a 1-2-2 back down. I wrote a note. Let me see Target real quick. So Target, this is actually, if it gets above, can I not put this on? This price level, you see on the daily, that's a pivot machine gun set up back to the upside. So yeah, so it's probably not going to take that all out in one day because let's see, Target's range isn't overly huge. It's like just under, it's like 2.7, so 2 3/4 points roughly. And how far have we moved here? 172. Okay, so it's still got maybe a 1.5 that it could go. You don't really want to trade it while it's still inside that range. Looks like it went 2 for a hot second because it's green. It's not a yellow inside candle, but it's now just screwing around. Let's see something. I put this on my scanner. I put this price surge up and price surge down. And for some reason, the data isn't populating. It's really annoying. Let's see here. Amazon. Let's see. Yeah, see, this one, these are some stronger higher lows. So if you had been watching it, it's at the bottom of that range. We got a low, a higher low, and even a higher low, and it's over a little bit of time. It's not one, 1 minute that happened. So that's another good sign too. And here you see when it busted out, the developing point of control and the point of control are the same. So when it busts over that, that's a nice signal too. And then you always got to check your range. So 273, it's enough range to make some decent money. And it could push higher. You just gotta see what's going on here. The daily setup isn't ideal. I mean, this would be so much cleaner if it opened here and started moving higher, but price action's a little wonk wonk right now. Just because you got now you got everything except for financials, spies, Qs. They all look like they're about to turn here. Things are starting to, yeah. If I look at the internals, so I created a scan and I've got all, spy, no, on TC2000. What I did is I actually pulled a scan from the Discord chat room and then I set it up with a watch list of the indexes. And so I've got Q, SPIs, diamonds, IWM, and then I put in all of the ETFs for the different sectors, like the industrials, the financials, the consumer staples, all of that, so you can see what's going on in the breadth of the market. It's just a huge battle because it keeps trying to go negative and then fights back a little bit positive. And that's the price action that can be really difficult to trade. See, on Amazon, if I'd been watching this chart, you got this little guy right here. So then you could have looked for a triangle layout real quick on the 15-second to get in. Bottom of the range, above point of control. Room to move up. It's just going inside. A lot of things are inside right now on our watch list. Except for Netflix. To see what happens here. And this is once again where, in my opinion, you want to watch these smaller time frames because this really looks like it could be setting up a 222 reversal. But if I'm looking at the 15-second chart, you see it's making a pretty good push here. So that it's not, and it hasn't dipped below, so it hasn't really become a setup yet, but you'll see price screw around sometimes and people get into that trade and then get stopped out right away. But if you can see what's going on inside here, and on the 15-second, it still has that trend up, that can really help you decide to take a trade or not take a trade. Oh yeah, 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 absolutely. Sure. No, I understand. Yep. Well, and the nice thing is this just live updates all day. So you set it up and you just leave it there, and then you can see just by looking at what's green, what's red, you know, what's going on here. They're still there, these little dots. Oh yeah, no, I took because you, yeah, it started to make my eyes go a little too nuts. Yep, yeah, turn them off. I mean, really, there is some truth to the cleaner your charts are, the more you can see what's going on with price action. Cues. Cues are just getting, huh? So here's an instance. Let's look at this real quick, where in the past we might have taken a double top on cues. Well, we'll see what happens here, and that's where again I'm looking at this chart, draw my trend line. Is it going to bust below? Just because it busts below doesn't mean it's going to go. Because sometimes your trend line you got to move it out. But when things are moving cleanly, trend lines tend to work pretty darn well. But yeah, I'm a lot more cautious with these double tops than I might have otherwise been in the past. And this big area that's jutting out, and the point of control happens to be right there, that can often provide some pretty strong resistance. It is, yeah. Not that it won't break through it, but just something to be aware of. And see, you're seeing here, that's a definite break. Could turn around and come right back up here, though. And that's why, you know, if you're in a trade, I was in a trade yesterday and it looked like it was starting to go against me, but the issue becomes there's that fine line about market makers stopping out and then turning around and going back up. So I was patient with it and it turned around, um, went back up, and I just dumped out and took the money, and that turned out to be the right thing to do. So if you're in a situation where you kind of get caught with a trade that's going against you because of triangle the out, and it's kind of an art. I mean, this isn't an exact science, but over time you'll know, okay, you want to wait for it to make a pump back in your direction and get out. Unless, I mean, if you get a situation like this, that's tougher, right? But once again, that's where these smaller time frames can help you. And if you kind of got into a situation that maybe you shouldn't have been, or price went so far against you, knowing when maybe you need to hold on and just wait for price to come back your way a little bit and then get out of the trade, it's tough. But oftentimes you'll get that chance to get out for a smaller loss or slightly positive. Look at SPY. Right, here we go with everything shifting back down on the internals. So I mean, this is how 3 candles start, you know, when they go outside. And it's really cool when you can start to see those possibilities. SPY is inside. Turn off Oh, you know what? TC 2000 has closes at the top of the hour, trading view at the bottom, so it's going to be different. So you got to look at it's inside on the 30. So SPY is something I wouldn't really touch right now. Even though here it does look like it's trying to make that push. And that's what can be difficult too, because let's say all of a sudden this just flies right up. It starts going 2. Well, you've got what, 13 minutes left in the candle. It can be difficult to get an entry on some of those strat trades. Here's one thing I don't overly like. Here's something else that, oh, 1 second. The session volume has a box where you can actually see the order sizes. And again, that can be a lot more mess on your chart at times. But you see how, unless you can change the way that that looks too. Am I in the right one? Yeah. Change the inputs. Change that. There's a way to change it so you actually see buy versus sell. I think you change it from under volume, do it up down, and see it'll show you the order sizes. So let me show you guys this. When you see these are the buy side orders. When you see there's 0 at the top of this range, that's a pretty good indication that things are going to start turning around. Yeah, this is on. So I have both the session volume HD and the session volume on my chart because they have some different features. So this price deal I've got actually on just the regular session volume. Yes. Oh, yeah, here it's under FX. Under volume profile, you've got HD and volume HD, and they have different features. I don't want this other histogram on there. Why is that? Yeah. And we've got about 3/4 of the internals. Everything's really starting to go red here. Yeah, and I can talk you through it. I just can't right at this moment. I want to see. All right, why aren't they there? So here you see that the sell orders were more than double. I mean, at the top here, you've got some more people trying to buy, and you see it's still getting slapped down. And then you see Amazon's got this big little bridge coming out. Yeah. So again, a lot of this is putting pieces of the puzzle together. I wish it was just as simple as trading strat setups, but it's, in my opinion, it's just not. I think they're wonderful, and I think they completely change, excuse me, your trading. But I want this stuff over the candles. But why is it not working? There we go. But yeah, I mean, to me, you've got to have multiple pieces of the puzzle. We've got so many things inside right now when I'm looking at our list. See, and this is pivot machine gun. Do 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 do. That's yesterday, but just so you guys know what that looks like. When you see really neatly organized candles that just go straight in one direction, that's your setup for a pivot machine gun to go back the other way. Yeah, well, on any time frame, right? So yesterday, this is intraday on the 30. I mean, that's just beautiful both ways, right? And so clear. But you see what I mean? If you got in right here, then Facebook would have turned around and gone against you. A lot of people wouldn't be able to hold on. It gets sucked back up and starts going your direction. But that's where I'm saying oftentimes it's not as simple as that. You need to have a lower time frame up potentially. And one of the things you can do, let's just look at this on a 3-minute time frame, is if you get into something like that and it goes against you, but it's still trending up on a lower time frame, when it pulls back, let's even look at it maybe on a 1 minute, you can add at that point on these pullbacks. And well, so let's see, 30-minute yesterday. So if you got in here, the candle opened here and at one point went all the way back against you, right? So on the 1-minute chart, that would have been, here would have been the low of this guy that you got in on. And then right as you got in, it turned around and went back. So that's where if I'm looking at these setups, I'm going to be watching that lower time frame. And yeah, and that's where let's just say you took it here and it came back against you. Well, this is a higher low, so that's where being patient comes in. So when you see it start to go back green, you could add it. Of course, it comes back down again. But you see, we've got a low, a higher low, a higher low. And then this, when you see this kind of engulfing candle, it took out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like the past 8 candles in one, didn't quite take this guy out, but 7 candles in one fell swoop. That's a really strong candle. And you see how it's got a flat base. That means buyers jumped in right out of the gate and started buying. So that's how you know when it's safer to add. So if you had done that, then you would have, oh, and I think I'm looking at today, but still a good example. Not looking at yesterday. But it's going to be a similar deal here, right? Because you get in, then comes back, but that's where you got to be patient and see what happens next. Because even though it came against you, that it turned around and went right back. So a lot of I mean, there's somewhat of an art to this whole deal, right? And I mean, I'm clearly not always perfect at it. It's easy to talk through when you're not in the trade, but that's a really important skill when you're in a trade to develop that and determine, okay, what are the factors that should cause me to stop out of this, and what are the factors that I'm just getting a little micro try and it's a good chance to add. Facebook just wants to go here. So on something like this, if I were going to get in it, what is the range on? It's got a 7-point range, 272. Okay, so there's still room for it to go. I mean, ideally, you'd like to see it go above these highs, which it looks like it's trying to do right now. And then personally, I'd wait for it to push through, come back, and then continue going. The thing I don't like, look at the orders here, although buying's picking up. So sellers are trying to push it down. Here it was about. Yeah. Yep. So see now it's switching direction. The buyers just way overtook. So you go into the regular, not the HD, but the regular. There's a checkbox somewhere for show values. All right, looks like the market's trying to go positive here. Let's see if there's anything. Yeah, it's helpful. On which chart? Oh, did it? Like how much of a delay is there on it? To where it's not even useful? I wonder if you can use it on a small time frame. So I'm just gonna look at the 1 minute up here and see if that looks just totally. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't believe in anything but looking at the candles. And while I get that, I mean, my ultimate goal is to be done trading by about 10 o'clock every day. So when you're trying to determine direction out of the gate, I mean, the volume profile is to me invaluable. I don't really need the moving indicators on this chart. What they're useful for, though, I will tell you, is when you're in a trade and you get, again, a triangle day out, and you're worried that, okay, is this going to stop me out? You see how price came back and tapped, I think this is like the 21-day moving average, and then continued higher. It's like your moving trend line. I don't use it as an indicator per se. I just use it because when things are moving fast, then I can see, okay, is it still in trend without drawing lines? Because sometimes you don't have time to sit there and try to draw lines on your chart when you're in a trade. So that's what it's useful for. And on the really small time frames, what I use it for is just to help me determine when things are changing direction. So when I see the 9 go back above, that's a good indicator. And really, I mean, if you didn't have this on your chart, a good indication, if you didn't have the moving averages, would be the fact that this huge engulfing candle took out all of these levels. When a candle takes out more than 3 of the previous candle's highs to the upside, that means, and you have I forget what they call, there's a special name for candles that just have a flat bottom, but I'm mind blanking on it. A shaved candle is what they're called. And they're really strong candles in either direction because it means, in this case, buyers took control right away. And if it were the other way, sellers took control. There's no wick, right? So when you see that type of candle, that's your signal that things are starting to change, you know? So, I mean, you really don't need the moving averages. It's just a good way to cheat. And price doesn't always have one of these nice candles when it reverses. It can be a little wonkier at times. So had I been watching this, this would have been an entry of the 15-second. That hammer candle above, now above point of control, because you see it start to go here and then you want to chase and you can't. You got to wait for that triangle to the out. And then you see it just took off. So I don't keep these numbers on all the time too, because I feel like it junks up my chart. But if we're getting to a place where it's hard to tell what's going on, let me turn them off. Is it this one? Yeah. If we're getting near a top and I want to know, that's another thing you can do, you know, when you're talking about double tops, double bottoms, you can turn that on and see who's taking control. And that can oftentimes help you. We're just getting a lot of mixed signals, a lot of inside candles here. Qs are inside, which means. So what I usually do, I know a lot of people have 8 time frames up. I'm one, I need to see the bigger picture. So this is why I have my chart set up like this, because I can see where price is likely to go. So this morning, had I been looking at this, look at these candles in front again. When you see it start to go down, you know, your first target is going to be here, then it's going to be here, then it's going to be the wick here. And you see price almost made it to that wick, almost, but it was strong enough to start going back up before it hit that magnitude, pretty close. But when you start to see these big wicks at the bottom of these little dojis, this is your basing formation again. So, and you can see that super clearly here on the 15-second. So what I do when I know I need to look at what's going on, or I want to look at setups on some of these larger time frames, I just change this chart to whatever I need to see because I always like to have the daily up. If it's a situation where we're close to taking the week on something, I'll oftentimes put that level on my chart and I mark it in blue so I know when price has gotten above the weekly level. And for me too, if I'm looking at 8 different charts at once, I can't, my brain just cannot absorb that much information. Hmm. It is. It is in a lot of ways. You just can't get caught up in the fray, you know? You gotta you gotta use it more as an entry chart and to see what's going on inside those candles because if you start looking at the candles look so big sometimes to the downside and really on a larger time frame they're just a regular triangle they out back to trend and you might inadvertently just freak out and jump out of a trade when you just you gotta kind of get used to it I guess and yeah. Yeah, and I'm not here to say by any means this is how you have to do it, because for every trader, it is such an individual preference kind of thing. Yeah, and so what anyone listening should do is take the stuff I'm telling you about, put it on your charts, and then experiment with what you find to work for you. Because just because I use it doesn't mean you're gonna love using it. You may find a different path, you know? But I'm just here to share the information of how I look at it, if that makes sense. Turn this one on which? It's interesting. Morning. Oh yes, I know how that goes. I just want to see what it looks like if you use. I wonder if it shows up more quickly. I just put this new thing on my chart that's supposed to show you where block orders, like institutional orders, go through. I've never used it. What? Yeah, that's what. Gotcha. So that's kind of worthless then. Let me see. I just gonna see if it works on a faster time frame. It's a lot of noise. Just gonna see. Or if it's still really slow here too. Yeah, maybe that's the only way it's useful. So maybe that's the only way it works. But So it's just something to note here about Amazon's chart when you're looking at it. It got to the top of that range, tried to go higher, couldn't, made another attempt, still couldn't. And you're typically going to see some kind of reaction at the extremes of that range. So Amazon's pretty strong, at least so far, because it tried to go lower, but it stopped itself right here and turned around and went back higher. So it could just be that it's coming back up to test it again and goes lower. It could be strong enough to push through now. Oh yeah, it does seem to show up a lot faster. So I guess if you're going to use it, you really need to have it on this faster time frame. And it could just be there weren't, sometimes you won't get any of those, and it just means there weren't any block orders going through. It is amazing. I mean, the other thing I like to do, I mean, you can see the trends with your eyes, but I still like to draw them because it's uncanny how they tend to work. And sometimes you'll draw one and it changes the trajectory, so it may not come all the way back down here. But when, again, if you're looking for an entry into something, a lot of times I'll draw a trend line and wait for it to pull back to it because you'll find oftentimes it will, even if it's a little bit later. Hmm. Yep, yep. Yeah, typically, I mean, you got to be quick, right? And it's got to be the right setup. So again, that means to me it's, and I need to have pre-market on, so I want it at the bottom of the histogram, and ideally, Facebook still went up, but ideally, if you have a chart that maybe has a little extension here, but then it's caved out, you'll find price just flies. And if you have a situation like this, because we have this void here, right? So Facebook went up through that void, and then it's interesting, right at this node, it consolidates and tries to figure out what it wants to do. Does it want to go higher? Does it not? And then takes off again because now you have this big other void for it to jump, for price to move into. A pullback. Yep. And so far, it's not a huge pullback. We'll see if this candle takes us back up again. Yep. Would be this guy right here. Yeah, 278-ish. Yep. See, so far this just looks like a regular triangle day out right back to trend. And then it's trying to make a push higher. See how the internal, the turn, it just keeps staying about 50-50. And that's when Rob always talks about, when you get everything going in one direction, that's when you get really strong moves. So if all the internals were green or all of them were red, that's when you can expect a really strong move in one direction. When you get these splits like that, it tends to be a little choppier action. Doesn't mean things aren't going to move, but now here, we'll have to see what it does because it's gotten to the top of that range and it's looking like it doesn't overly love it. Yeah, I have them on in the beginning and then I turn them off because I like to see the magnitude of the previous candles and where price is likely to go. But if you start out with it on, for me, it comes on when market opens, so you don't have that edge of knowing what's likely to happen out of the gate, if that makes sense. Yeah, exactly. Yep. It's just pissing around right now. SPY's looking like it's starting to make a turn here. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of gappers. I know some people are. I just, yeah, yeah, it's not my deal necessarily either. Yeah. So this is a rev strat right here, a one, yeah. And you see the little point of control is above price. So that's a trade you can take. You've got at least this magnitude back down to, it's only 32 cents, but mhm. Yeah, I mean, what on what stock was that, Ray? What stock? It was what? Apple. Well, that's the thing, a lot of people think the open is difficult to trade. Really, in a lot of ways, it's the easiest time to trade because you've got the volume profile that gives you your range. Generally, you can tell what that direction is going to be. And let's look at SPY here. I don't have pre-market on, but if I did, you can see, I mean, there's no question that was a short, right? because you've got a series of highs, lower high, lower high, and boom. Let's see how big that magnitude was. Oh no, that was a nice little down move you could have grabbed right away. And you also have a one candle here. Pre-market setups work as well. So you've got below point of control, you got a series of lower highs, and you have a break of the pre-market inside candle. Makes sense. So that actually was a really good setup. And that's what, like, for me, I can't watch 92 things at once. I mean, I really have to focus on one thing. I'll have other charts up so I can glance, but if something looks good, I'm going to pull it up here and look at the bigger picture. I can't look at these little thumbnails. Maybe one day I'll be able to, but I just, yeah, it's a badass, huh? Oh my Lord. Some days makes like $100,000. No, I wouldn't think so, but it seems like I think she's been trading for quite a while. Oh, well, there you go. How old is she now? Oh, yeah. So yeah, that's why she's so amazing at it. I mean, most of us have been trading a year or two. She what? Oh, as a trader? Yeah, it's a boatload. I would be so mentally exhausted. She plays a lot of those small caps too, which for me just isn't my thing necessarily. It works, it's not my thing. Hey, what's up? Good. Oh, I understand. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's making lower highs all the way down. And this is where, well, it would have been the bottom of the histogram. Yep. And when you can kind of start to tell when a move may be over because you will see how there's, well, a couple things. There's this big void, if you will, right here. So it's going to float into that void generally. And then you see that the volume dried up. There's like nothing at the bottom. That's a good, so for it to go from here all the way back to here, that's also a sign that that's kind of your target. So let's say that pre-market, the histogram hadn't gotten that low yet, it started forming. And a lot of times I will draw a line at the high and low of the pre-market histogram just for reference. But you don't even necessarily, yeah, you don't even necessarily need to do that because you can see there's this void forming. So price is gonna, if it's already breaking below this node, it's gonna float into that range. And then you can also see where it just successively started drying out. Yeah, and the thing is, like SPY is so actively traded, you're gonna get a picture of that, but you'll see here's the highs, here's pre-market lows. Yeah, well, really they're down here. So that's another thing that I'll sometimes do with pre-market. You see these crazy candles with these giant wicks. Sometimes I'll draw a line there. Yeah, I guess that's what they are. That's what Trick always said. But yeah, and you see that kind of corresponds with these goofy candles with the long wicks. Yep. No, you know what? Chris and Jerry and Ant, even though they're in the strat, are still at Church Trades. I'm like, why are you guys still there? Yeah, I don't get why are you paying him 300 and something a month when all he tells you to do is draw some lines on your chart. I mean, and I'm not at all saying I'm not thankful for what I learned there. I am, but I really started to feel like there was nothing new I could learn. Hmm. Yep. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And really, there is some truth to you got to buy when it looks the scariest, especially with options, because yeah, I mean, that price can start moving up before it actually turns green. And that's once again where the 15-second can really help, because you can see right here that little hammer. If you miss that, you got a bunch of more chances to get in. Whereas sometimes you miss a 3-minute candle here and you're like, well, shoot, I missed the trade. That's the whole reason I started using the 15-second. Right. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, yeah, he was a real dick. He brought it up and then wouldn't really tell us about it. Yeah, and he doesn't want us to know about it. Oh, I know, right? Yep.